Thanks for watching The Instant Reaction. For full episodes of the Cannon Podcast, sign up as a YouTube member on this channel or go to patreon.com/thecannonpod.
And we're Phil, Till and Corners. Phil, Till and Corners FC. We're by far the greatest team the world has ever seen. Welcome back to Phil, Till and Corners FC. It's the reaction. How you doing, George?
I'm good, mate. That was fun, wasn't it? Nice and relaxing in general. Although, yeah. I don't know. I haven't gone on the timeline yet. Maybe I'm totally removed from social media.
Get rid of it. Just focus on what's in your mind, George. What did you feel watching the game? It
was brilliant. We had a very calm game for once that we didn't get out of second gear. We won 3-1. Poor deflection, but it wasn't like there was an insane defensive error in that sequence. It was just unfortunate. If we're really going to be critical, I think that Tomiyasu was fouled, if I'm actually going to be honest. But you take those, and I think fundamentally we saw some really nice principle stuff. I was annoyed with maybe our usage of the pivot still. I still feel as though whenever we play with Jorginho and Zinchenko, there is a level of redundancy for me there that they both like those zones, and there's not enough vertical staggering on the pivot, something that we saw in Sevilla a lot more of when we had more of that balance with Tomiyasu coming in. But ironically, I think our fullbacks probably took the star of the show. Zinchenko himself had a brilliant game. Tomiyasu had a great game as well. Yep. Our fullbacks were brilliant in this game, and that's not something that you always can say.
They were so good. Yeah. I'm so happy. Yeah, I thought they were very good. Yeah. Overall, look, yeah, we didn't get our second gear. It wasn't the hardest afternoon where we're going to play. I thought Burnley did all right at points in the first half. I was frustrated. Let's come to the frustrations later, because I think we should always with a win try and focus on the positives, because you only win how many times a season, so let's enjoy what we can.
Well, for us a lot.
For us a lot. But you only win once a week maximum, or maybe twice. So I think you should enjoy it while it happens. Yes. So yeah, positives. I thought Zinchenko was fantastic. I thought specifically in the first half, I thought Zinchenko was really timing when to go inside and when to stay wide really well. I think sometimes his desire to come inside so often means that we get a bit clogged up in the midfield, and it's very obvious. It's more predictable, and you either decide, okay, I'm going to let my winger come inside or chase him, and it's more predictable. I think when he is a bit more in and out, and he's sometimes wide and he's sometimes inside, it's harder to track him. So I was happy with his decision making in that point. I thought Kai Havertz had a good game. So here's the thing. The game broke down under his feet at all times. Every time he got into the final third, it broke down under his feet. So you might be thinking, why is that a good game? I think it's a good game for Havertz, because I think what's happened is we've got to a point now where it's almost like the phrase I used was Kai Havertz is the human embodiment of edging. Now, if you know what edging is,
no idea, mate.
You know what I'm trying to say? And if you don't know what I'm saying, I can't say it on here because we'll get demonetized. But my point is, he's now got to the point where I think he's one action away from the execution. It's a poorly timed header. It's a poorly timed shot, whatever. I haven't been seeing that. So I'm happy that he's getting into those positions. It feels like he's like a misfiring new number 9 that once he starts scoring, put them away. But that's not been the case for a while. So I was actually fairly pleased with his performance. I'll come to a second on that. I was pleased with Saka and Martinelli, though I know they didn't have a great game in terms of output. I liked what they did. Thought they did their actions well. The one thing I would say, and maybe we will come to the negatives then, is I think, especially towards the end of the first half, I still think our risk-reward axis isn't right. I think maybe Jesus is our risk taker in that front five. And I think when Jesus isn't there, the risk-reward thing just tips slightly too far. If you look at the goals, they are a ball into the box from Zinchenko for Trossard to finish. They are a great improvised moment from Zinchenko, and obviously from a corner zone, which it comes to our corners and stuff. But ultimately, all of those things, they're attempts. You have to, what's that Andy Gray quote? If you don't buy a ticket, you don't win the raffle. And that was my main frustration, is that I felt as though at periods, and in this game we didn't need to get out of second gear, so it's not a problem. But moving forward, my frustration is, and I'm interested in your take on this, I feel like we hold on to the ball a little bit too long. It's just a couple of seconds. It goes out to Saka, it's just a little bit too long. It comes back to Rice, it's just a little bit too long. And I was frustrated by the movement of the ball at times. It doesn't matter today, but in the future, I think it's been a concern for the course of the season.
Well, one question I would ask you is why was it different against Sevilla? And it wasn't intensity of opponent, because it wasn't like Burnley where in a high press position. They were also similarly in a low block. They were defending quite diligently. One thing I will say, the perception of the team game, I do think plays an influence. People see Burnley and say, if you're not up 3-0 at the beginning in the first 25 minutes, it's a poor game.
Yep.
I didn't think that we were poor in the first half. I, like you, felt our buildup was slow. I felt like we weren't getting the ball quick enough to our 1v1 demons, but I actually thought that we were attempting more half space crossing in general,
which was nice.
Which is a new thing, something that we haven't been doing, and that's another way to attack low blocks. And I think in terms of risk management, that's a way to increase your half space crossing. And I think that we were doing a lot more routines about getting ourselves into positions to score. And I saw the intent more than I've seen in other matches. Like you, I have this prevailing theory on the pivot, and it's going to sound weird because I think Zinchenko probably is man of the match in this game. I think that pivot is too naturally slow and too much. Both of them want to be the controller, so to speak. And when you talk about Sevilla and why those things maybe are a little bit different and how you can have more vertical staggering, which, by the way, I've used this. Maybe it's too fancy for people. It's just when you've got one person in the pivot and then one slightly ahead, as opposed to two people flat side by side.
Too advanced.
And I know it's a small tweak, but having two people beside each other that both like to slow the game down and like to recycle play is a problem.
Yep.
And so when you talk about that build-up tempo, and I'll just add this too to it, I think Tomiyasu, in terms of how he played today, was brilliant. He was offering a lot more overlaps. In fact, I think that he's getting something. He switched a gear in recent weeks. It's not just confidence, not just play. I think he feels more part of the fabric of the team. Yeah, and he's being trusted. So I think he made a lot more dynamic runs and gave us a lot of the stuff that, Ben White was doing. I just felt like from deep, when Declan Rice comes to then pick up the ball, you've now got three players, Zinchenko, Jorginho, Declan Rice. That's a fairly flat midfield that is looking to do the same things when they come deep. They're not looking to carry the ball through the lines, and they're not looking exactly to pass to an 8 inside the block. They're looking to go around. And for example, look at Jorginho's first pass when he receives off the first kick of the game. It's to recycle. It's not to go forward. It's to recycle. You look at Jorginho. What's his first instinct? It's to recycle. What's Declan's? It's to recycle. So there's not enough risk-taking that was happening at the beginning of the first half. But I do feel, Trossard was brilliant in terms of his ability to interchange. And while he may not be a game breaker in his mazy dribbling ability, I thought today he took an extra gear in facilitation. He really was everywhere.
We spoke about that on the podcast, right? Like there's a difference with Trossard in terms of just the ability to switch in and around. I think he's not the athletic profile of Jesus, and he's not the risk-taking profile of Jesus. But I think with the facilitation, it does make our attack look slightly different. I want to come back to the Zinchenko Jorginho thing because I think it's a really good point. I think that what I would say is if we had Partey and Rice and Smith Rowe, and if we had everyone fit, I don't think we see that pivot. I don't think that's right. So I don't think that would be Mikel's first choice. I see why he does it. I think it's like the next best option, but I don't see that. What I would say is what I felt a lot, especially during the second half, actually, was we had like 5 against 2 in the build-up phase. And I think that's kind of probably maybe the main factor is both Jorginho and Zinchenko want to drop and get on the ball. Now, you have to know when to do that. Sometimes you do need to come and receive it and take it off the back foot. But when Burnley are sat there with a 2 forward and the rest of them are 30 miles away.
Do we need them there?
Do we need 5 of you behind the ball to try and control it? And I do agree with that. Let's come to the incident, working backwards. Did you think it was red?
If the league thinks it's a red, it's a red. The problem is the consistency. Yeah. It's intent. I'm perfectly fine with that being red, but then apply that everywhere in the league, please. And the problem is it isn't. So that's why people are like, it's an orange, and the intent isn't to maim or injure, but he catches him. So you're like, okay, now you've given the ref a decision to make. You can see why it's a red in that instance, but I don't think he's intended. I don't think that he's meant to do it, but he catches him on the knee. And I'll be honest, if I receive something like that, I'd be like, ooh, I'm asking questions.
Gary Neville. Oh, he's a lucky
Ooh.
boy. Look, I think if he didn't get sent off, he'd be a lucky boy. But
Yeah.
equally, it sounds bizarre. I do feel it like I think what's the aim? Maybe in a different game state. If we were drawing and it was like 60 minutes in, I think maybe that's an orange. It's a very much a talking to and a yellow, and look, you're on your final warning. But I do feel I don't know. I just my main directive for refereeing should be let the players decide the game. Please let the players decide the game. And in this game, it doesn't really matter. And we're going to forget about this incident or whatever. And the only way this incident is going to be referenced is something will happen to us in the next game, and someone will tweet out and say, "Oh, so this wasn't a red, but this is a red." And that's the point. It's the consistency. And look, there's precedent for it being a red. I get that. But my general gut feeling at the minute around referees is try and let the players decide it. And yeah, I think in this game it doesn't matter, but in another game I think we might be crying that. Let's look at the goals. Working backwards, Zinchenko. What a finish, baby!
It was incredible. I'll be on, and you know what? It capped off a really good performance from him. And you know what? He's been slowly.
It's such a Zinchenko game though. 3 p.m. at the Emirates against the bottom half team. That is Zinchenko will cook in every one of those games.
You know what I've thought recently too? That Zinchenko's had brilliant ball striking for the last couple games. Even in Sevilla, he had an opportunity when he came on his cameo, the top of the box on that volley. It's been brilliant. He's been connecting quite well. With his passes, and I just think it's more than he deserved. He was also interchanging on the right quite a bit throughout this game. Like there was a very free role that he was given. Look, on the goal, it's brilliant. What can you say? I think it's the best goal that we've scored. Personally, for me, the nerd in me loves the Saliba goal because I want to talk about the set pieces and how we created space for that. But I think Zinchenko's is probably the most technically brilliant goal of this.
It's just nice. It's the kind of goal supporters love.
Yeah,
Saliba's goal is the kind of goal coaches love, I think.
Yep.
Go on then. Bloody hell. I'll talk about the set pieces. We are set piece FC. Can I just get our set piece numbers up because they're crazy?
We're the best in the league. I don't know why people critique that.
I've seen some people I had some comments on something I did recently. People going, can you talk about why we never score from corner? Guys, we have the most goals.
We have the most goals. Yeah.
What are you on about?
Yeah, I'm very, very confused. I think that look, Arsenal have been. Why does Nicholas Jover not get the credit he deserves? And by the way, on defensively in terms of set pieces, we don't give up many set pieces in general as well. Like we're top in the league in both aspects. So, I think it was brilliant.
I'm not sure this is updated, but set piece goals we were top either before today or we're top now in terms of set piece XG.
We're top now for sure.
We're 3.47 set piece shots. Where are we? Sort of middle. Goals from set pieces were this is open play, and there's another one. Goals against. This is it. So this is set piece XG against us. We're at 1.47 right at the bottom. So not only are we incredible in terms of scoring from set pieces, in terms of preventing goals here, we also are the best at preventing them, which I think
that's what I'm saying. So I don't understand why people critique set pieces. We are making the marginal gain. And by the way, you know what's very ironic? When you talk about a low block team in general, you need your set pieces to work for you guys. Like you're going to be having 10 to 12 corners a game. You need to maximize that. And so, look, on the set piece goal, we've talked about it on other shows. The way that we've been creating the space in the middle of the park for William Saliba to arrive there is absolutely brilliant. And I think that the decoy runs that we make in the near post to then create the space for William Saliba to come in is just it's brilliant. I love it. I think that goal was amazing, and I love the celebration. Did you catch what he was doing?
It was just like this.
Yeah, it's me. Yeah, and I'm like, that's just.
Hi, William Saliba, it's me.
Look, and he did another one of those last-ditch tackles that was brilliantly timed.
He did make a mistake today, which nearly got punished.
He's not infallible, but
he's not. He has to prove himself to not be an alien. So I'll look at the numbers. 2.1 expected goals and 3 goals. I imagine maybe that's the Zinchenko thing. Probably explaining that because it was a lovely bit of play. 16 shots to their 8. They got 8 shots, 5 on target.
Well, they had a lot of transitions as well. There was moments.
All that matters, baby. Let's go. We're by far the greatest team Phil Tilt has ever seen. Then this is the running XG. Not particularly interesting. Oh, there we go, boys. So I think that's the red card, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
Look at that. It's all that matters, really. These are the passing networks.
Well, I'd love us to just pause a second on it instead of moving. So the one thing, look at Declan Rice and Alexander Zinchenko. And the redundancy that we're talking about in the pivot is exactly born in this. We had a left-hand side bias, I'd say, in the second half of the match, and that's why I think that was really important. The one thing is, I feel as though we need to have a discussion about this pivot if we're going to have it in the future and the balance that this stuff brings. So I don't think Declan stays as deep if that's Tomiyasu instead of Zinchenko.
Agree. Yeah.
And so those spacings are a little bit different. And when we talk about Leandro Trossard, by the way, being a little bit more chaotic, look at how isolated he is in terms of his pass network. The one thing I'll say is if he's going to be chaotic, there needs to be support for him to be chaotic. Jesus drops down and typically there's a lot more space. If you looked at this pass map from last year, Xhaka is a lot closer to the striker and to the left winger at that point. So you have more bodies to do it. That's my only thing in this match, but I think Zinchenko's influence was brilliant. And I did really like, Tomiyasu's ability to kind of flank Jorginho. Because look, let's have it right. He's a very unathletic pivot. We understand what his in possession qualities are, but I think in order to kind of make him shine, he needs to have the policemen beside him to allow him to make those decisions. And that's basically defensive solidity. So it doesn't have to be Taki or Tomiyasu. It could be Kiwior as well. Who I was glad got minutes, but they were pity minutes in my opinion.
What's the job, Jakob? Please save us.
And I'll be honest. I think it's so ironic because Zinchenko had the man of the match, and I hate saying this, but I almost felt like this was a Kiwior potential game because we're gonna need these guys down the line, and I think that keeping them warm like this was something I was worried about generally. And I just thought it was an opportunity with Ben White out. I knew Tomiyasu would be on the right, and I'm just thinking, come on, then pick Kiwior. Let's see what he's got.
And a Vieira game from the start. I was.
Can we talk about that? Because actually, I've got a coaching reason for it. And are we surprised when Vieira doesn't get minutes when we know that Kai Havertz is starting and we've got Jorginho? Those are the two things that I want to ask questions about.
Go on.
If you're going to have a Declan Rice who's not going to leave the midfield, he's going to be in there at some point, and you've agreed that Jorginho is going to be the anchor, right? The decision becomes Vieira or Kai Havertz, not Vieira, Kai Havertz, Declan.
But can it not be Rice in the six? I suppose. I think there's something about Rice and Martinelli that he quite likes.
Well, I can tell you, it's the high touch, low touch combination.
Yeah, for that, yeah.
Yeah, but let's ignore that. Let's say you put Declan Rice in the six. Who is going to play left back with Ben White out? Would you have put Kiwior there, or would you put Zinchenko? Right?
Yeah.
And then, so if you did do that and you put Zinchenko, are we now having Vieira and Zinchenko on the same side as being passing influences?
Yeah.
That's where it gets a little bit techie. Let's say.
Yeah.
Now, the argument in me could be, well, George, you have that redundancy down in the pivot, so why does it matter if it's now vertical as opposed to horizontal? Because we got that. I can understand that, but in my opinion, Vieira is he's a final action player, and the role right now with Kai Havertz playing, your 8 would be more second phase, and I don't think that suits Vieira. It suits Declan Rice. The role is the thing.
True. I think, yes, an overall play, but knowing how much of the ball we'd have in the final third, I would have loved to see Vieira. If you could flip out Jorginho for Vieira in the final third, and then have him back out. Do you know what I mean? That would be kind of the dream. 627 of you in here. Thank you so much for joining us. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe, and please comment on George's beautiful hair. You had another trim.
No, just it's greasy, so I get to
side parting. It's unbelievable. Right, let's do some questions. Elneny didn't get his 30-second masterclass. Milo says if Elneny got his 30 seconds, it would have been 5-0. That's what I say. Is Elneny the best Egyptian ever in the Premier League?
Yeah, absolutely. We can't. Look, Mo Salah just wipes his boots. Yeah.
Oh yes, we haven't spoken about this. Natuera Precious says, "Congratulations, McGunners! What a save from Raya."
Brilliant save. An important save in the game state as well, by the way. I thought Raya was actually very good in terms of his shot stopping, in general in this game. Focused. I don't think he's been as aggressive in his positioning lately. That's something that we can talk about.
Yeah,
And ironically, you're asking things of him that maybe are weaknesses, and he stood up to. So I think it's been brilliant. So yeah, David Raya had a really good game. I think on corners, I'm going to admit his claiming of crosses, I'd like to have a discussion about, because people are quoting the numbers and the eye test isn't matching up.
No,
He
I
has
agree.
3 claiming errors this season, and when I see him under corners, I'm not confident he's getting there.
He
And
looks less commanding. I think it's something to do with his body, like his size. I think Ramsdale just looks like he's got a longer reach, which doesn't really matter. But like it looks like Ramsdale can go over bodies a bit easier than Raya. Raya's almost between bodies and then rises, which is a different style. It's not necessarily wrong, but I don't know. Yeah.
But he had a really good game shot stopping wise. He didn't really put himself under pressure in that sense. And I think that that save 1v1 is so important. The low hand, it's underrated as well because
it sounds so quickly.
And he closes the angle. I think what I was going to say is, the big part of these things is when to go down is as much of a decision as going down. So it's not just the reaction of it, but if you go down a couple seconds too late, you open more of an angle to the goal. And I think he did a brilliant job in closing the angles down.
Agree. And also with Zinchenko as well. I think Zinchenko forced the shot earlier than maybe the player wanted to go.
Yeah.
We've been talking about Zinchenko from the defensive side of things, and he has improved. I don't know who this player is. So
yeah, we agree. He's not real.
Sailor.
Yeah.
No, sorry. There's some brilliant comments. Come on. Tottenham get better. There they go. Have we laughed at Spurs yet? Tottenham are terrible. Mate. I can't wait to see the whole Ange nice guy thing fall down now. Because what will happen is he'll start to lose. He'll start to get calls against him because the wheels are slightly falling. If you'll see him, see him turn that. Because the thing is I think on a personal level, when someone's like a bit acerbic and a bit witty when they're winning, it seems funny. It's like, come on, mate, what are you on about? And everyone's like, oh, that's so funny. When they're losing, it seems bitter. Yeah. And I think that will come differently. And I think it'll be a different.
I'm really confused why Tottenham is the team that the media chooses to have a love in. Like,
why do you are American? Let's be clear.
Yeah.
Why do you Americans say Tottenham is the team rather than Tottenham are the team? It's always annoyed me. Americans say,
yeah,
I think Arsenal is going to win.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never. We don't have grammar like you guys do. We don't.
Cool,
No, we don't. Like
I suppose our franchise is in. George is Canadian. Our franchise is in North America. Like they're like brand names, aren't they?
They are. They're a lot more brand, and they're not. There's not the level of community. Yeah, and well, look, I'd say like teams in England, they are synonymous with their neighborhood and their environment, and that's not the case. Like the Raptors, the Miami Heat, they're a brand themselves.
The Heat is going to do sick this year. Yeah. It's like an institution or a business. Yeah,
it is a business. Yeah.
Ash Booth says, George, Alex, why do you think Arteta didn't give either Walters, Sergio, or Ibrahim a start? Well, a start, I mean, a start is a big call. What I will say, excuse me. What I will say is, I wonder if Vieira didn't get sent off. I wanted to see a Walters or a Sergio Jr. or someone. I just think Arteta is so reluctant to use young players, and I get it. But similarly to the Kivior conversation, when you're depleted and you haven't been using these players, that's when you rue the day that you didn't give him a start or give him 5-10 minutes just to give him the rhythm of the game, just to give him a feeling, just to give him that experience. He comes in the dressing room, well done, mate, you first start, you're in the team now. And I don't know.
Look, the one thing I will say, to be fair, I'm definitely somebody that loves the academy. None of those boys are ready. I'm going to be very honest with you. Sure, they've made the bench, and it's an experience. That's part of the development. None of those boys are ahead of Mohamed Elneny, who hasn't got a game and
the greatest Egyptian of all time. Let's be clear.
Yeah, and Ruel Walters is not ahead of Tomiyasu in terms of getting in there.
I get that in terms of ability and readiness 100%, but I think giving those guys who are like
Reese, who we haven't seen and needs a game, like Sajo Jr. is not getting in above Reese, who we need to have a game. There's one player that I do push back on even my logic here, and that's Mario Kozier-Dewberry. That boy is ready. We've seen that Saka needs a rest. He's proven it. He's got incredible returns in terms of the academy. He's trained with the first team. That's somebody that I think that you should have brought on. You should have been able to provide your debut to. The thing is,
Obi a start. Come on, you coward.
Look, it's fun for us because we see the talented academy and we want to prop an academy youngster. Let's be clear.
Of course,
right? And so there's a part of that. A lot of the people that are ready though are at the U17 World Cup. Ethan and MLS, Miles has got, he's got an assist and he won a penalty, by the way, in his first game. Ethan, goal and assist himself. So these kids, like, they're stars, they're coming.
Oh, George.
Not everyone is going to be the superstar.
Pramod says, Kolyosho is good. Should we be looking at him? I liked him. 19 years old, Italy, U20 or U21 international. He looked strong. He looked quick. He looked direct. I love those types of wingers. I know that they're not your favorites, but I love those types of wingers.
No, I don't mind them. You know what I like is the aggressiveness that he tries no matter what. Like, he's not discouraged. And it can be discouraging playing against Saliba and Gabriel and that type of defense. And he doesn't care. He will continue pressing and forcing the issue, as much. One thing that I did want to talk about was the Martinelli impact on the left-hand side and the dribble. I talked about this on X a little bit, but I've been noticing this recently. I don't know about you. Matoma has been famous for kind of talking about his thesis in dribbling. And I won't bore everybody, but I will give them a very quick synopsis of basically his conclusions in that thesis. And so he essentially was saying, in order to fix an opponent, which is just a technical term for basically causing them to have a deer in headlights moment when you're doing a 1v1. One thing is he talks about making sure instead of side footing your first touch, you go through with your laces. One thing I've noticed with Martinelli is that he keeps his reception in the direction of travel to fix it. And that's the whole Wales coaching video that we've seen.
I don't understand that. Explain that again.
So essentially, when he's receiving the ball, he's not receiving back to goal. He's receiving on his side so that when the ball is coming to him, he controls it with his left foot.
So if it's coming to him from his right, he's receiving it with his right foot on the outside.
Yes. And he's always focused on being in the same direction that he's going to run into instead of receiving, turning back to goal. What this does is it gives him an extra second to create that separation, whether it's stop-start against his opponent. That's why he's so successful. And that's why it's not as aesthetic as other people, but it gives him the extra yard to really create that separation. And I think the one thing it does is it optimizes his ability to be super direct. And that's why using his kind of foot in the line of travel as opposed to the Grealish side foot. Grealish is a perfect example of having very much a different dribbling style. Grealish will stop, he will face play, he will receive back to goal, and there's that really funny video where he side foots it, and then he'll explode. That's the Grealish dribbling style. Martinelli doesn't do that. He's very different. And I think that's why he's very successful in his dribbling, despite not being aesthetically what people's eyes are going to. Because if you go back, I wonder what his numbers are, but Sevilla obviously gave the fullback a torrid time. But I'm noticing he's a lot more purposeful in making sure his body is positioned in the same direction that he'd like to travel.
George has Matoma's thesis tattooed on his arm. So, yeah, I think, what was that thing about just... what was that thing about step count as well? Because I think he's in. I always used to feel Martinelli took too many steps. I thought it was Saliba sometimes as well. I don't know whether this is unfair. Sometimes I think when he receives, he takes a few too many. It's a bit doddery. I don't know. Maybe it's just an aesthetic thing. I don't know. I don't know if it matters as much when you're in that position. But with Martinelli, I feel like he's taking less steps to achieve more, or certainly he's able to control that step count a bit more.
It's partly to me his body orientation. Like, it gives him that ability too. So you've got to create the space for your body to go into, and that extra second really is the difference for me.
Pramod says, George, I thought Martinelli always had that headache. I attribute it to his futsal upbringing in Brazil.
His futsal upbringing, I think, helped with his first touch and ability, but I think in terms of Mikel's work with his body orientation was brilliant, and also slowing him down. Martinelli is a stallion. He's a racehorse. He just wants to go 100 miles per hour. And I think still in his final action, by the way, some of the reasons why I feel it's rushed is because his head is go, go, go. He's got to slow down and assess a bit. And doing that is probably one of the biggest coaching things that I believe that Mikel has done for him.
More than you believe. Right. We'll finish there. Good win. We move on. What's the Premier League table saying?
Well, Tottenham. Sorry, buddy.
Battered everywhere they go. We are at.
I think we're third, right?
Let me just share my screen. We are here.
No, we're second because City haven't played yet.
Yeah.
So
and Liverpool. Okay, so we're joint top.
Yeah.
We're a point ahead of Tottenham. Hey. Liverpool. When did Liverpool? Oh, Liverpool play tomorrow. Brentford? Did they play?
They play Brentford, yeah, and Chelsea
tomorrow, and City and Chelsea play.
This could be a good weekend for us.
Okay, and also, yeah, Brentford. I was going to say a nice away. Okay, yeah, but Brentford and Chelsea City. You never know. You never know. I mean, actually, just before we finish, we should just quickly discuss the injury side of things because I feel like we have a lot of. We're beginning to build up the list line. I think the international breaks come at a good time. I mean, where are we now? We're at Smith Rowe. Saka will always be fine, but there's always worries about him. Nketiah was on the bench, but it doesn't sound like he's fully fit. Where obviously Partey, Timber, who else am I forgetting?
I think Ben White was
innocuous. Vieira's now suspended, so I don't know. I think the international breaks
there is a lot of those returning, right? Like I would say Saka, Odegaard, and Nketiah, all back by the international break, right? Yeah. So I really think it's going to probably be Timber and Partey. Emile Smith-Rowe rumored to be back, by the way, after the international break as well. Sure. So it looks bad now, but I do think it'd probably be Vieira suspended, Partey, and Timber.
Yeah, and Jesus as well. Yeah, and hopefully Jesus will be back. Yeah, I think
Jesus would be back as well.
I think the international break has come at a really good time.
Great.
And it's Field Tilt FC. Field Tilt FC. Yes. We're by far the greatest at corners the world's ever seen. Thanks, everyone. Please drop us a like, drop us a subscribe. Check out the latest podcast. We'll have one for you on Monday. We'll be back. Enjoy your Saturday evenings. Enjoy your Sundays. We'll see you Monday. Bye.
Peace.